All right, folks, welcome back to the Exit Interview, a podcast for Black educators with me, your host, Dr. Asia. I know I say this all the time, fire guest, great guest. We got another amazing guest today, Aurelius Raines II, who I ran into at South by Southwest. He would say, "Oh, you saw a big black dude," and you walked up and started talking. But I'm doing street interviews out there, and I gotta talk to my black folks to see if they're educators and what their journey is. And so now, fast forward several months later, we're here in the studio sharing, talking. Welcome to the podcast, Aurelius. How are you today?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I'm doing just great. It's a wonderful Sunday, and it's Father's Day, so
It is.
feeling good.
Good. Why don't you start by introducing yourself to the people? Who are you?
Sure, my name is Aurelius Raines II, the second of his name. I am from Chicago, born and raised my entire life. I got I am a kid who dealt with some neurodivergence when I was growing up. So I had a very rough relationship with school, and now I'm a teacher trying to make it better for other kids.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you do that full circle. And what a fascinating story. Folks, you're going to love where Aurelius is working now. First time I got that answer, like, where do you work? What are you doing now that you've left education? And I'll let him tell you about that. But let's go ahead and get started. So, first things first, tell us about your education journey. What did you, or how did you decide it was education was for you and that you wanted to be in teaching?
That was just something that was in me. Um, my grandfather spent some time as a teacher. My grandmother, on my mother's side, was a teacher. My mom always claimed that she did not like teaching, but she was always teaching kids. And she was like she was the teenage teacher at the church that I grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was a preacher. Now he's a pastor. And I learned a lot about teaching from him and from other people in ministry. And I think what happened was that at a very early age, I understood that teaching was not about knowledge, but it was about care. And I think that's
Mm.
a lot of what maybe learning about teaching from clergy taught me, is that it's not just about what you know; it's about how you care for people and how you show up for people. And having a father who was a minister, I saw that. So I saw like the full realm. Everybody just sees a person get up on stage and it's showtime, right?
Yeah.
But I was the one watching him, like, talk to people and counsel and take care and go visit people when they're in the hospital, and just be not just a person spewing out knowledge, in this case, spiritual or biblical, but also a person who is showing up and showing care. And so at a very early
Yeah.
age, I realized that's what teaching was.
Yeah, I've never heard that teaching is not about knowledge, it's about care. Yeah,
Mm.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And so, okay, and that's awesome. And it makes so much sense kind of hearing your story at South by a little bit and what you shared in, before we got on today. So tell me, you decided to go into education. What was that journey? Did you go directly in to higher ed? Were you elementary, middle? We want to know the details.
My journey was very controversial. So um, I I started as an aftercare teacher, and so there was a brand new little small school that was looking for an aftercare teacher, and I took that job, and I did so well with the aftercare program. In the middle of the year, they asked me to start, helping out in the classroom. So I started helping out in the classroom, and then the next year they're like, "Okay, we want you to have your own classroom."
Mm.
Yeah.
Was this
Um,
directly out of high school or college or what?
no, I was in my 20s. I want to say I was in my late 20s, mid to
Okay,
late
so you
20s.
didn't come
Yeah.
right out of school to teach.
No. No,
Okay,
I came right out of school. Well, that's the thing about it. I had not finished college at that time.
okay.
Yeah, I was not a certified teacher. I didn't at the time didn't even have a degree.
Okay. Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, yeah. So again, this also informs some a very interesting revelation about teaching that I'll get to later, right?
Okay.
So so the next year they gave me my own classroom, but it was like a second, third, and fourth grade classroom. When I tell you I was baptized in fire, um,
Yeah, and it's a tiny school, second, third, and
yeah,
fourth.
yeah, second, third, and fourth grade, I had 8 children.
Okay,
Okay,
got
so
you.
I had like a nice little playground to grow, but still,
Mhm.
it was a lot more than like a first year teacher or a second year teacher should ever have, right?
Mhm.
Um, so um, my approach to teaching was informed by the culture and society that I was living in, right? So I had standards, right? And but what I would look at is what was happening in the world and where the world was trending, and then thinking about these little first and second graders and third graders that I have in my classroom now. What skills will they need by the time I get this? By the time 2020 comes around, right? So
Mhm.
I was looking at. So I started teaching in like 2005, right? But
Mhm.
saying 2020, what kind of skills will these kids need to have, not just to go to college, not just to enter the workforce, but to deal with the world that they're living in, right? And so I was already in 2005 doing teaching kids about computer programming and coding. And this is before the big, coding push came along. So I had like very little support. So I was trying to teach
Yeah.
my kids how to use Logo. I was already definitely heavily invested in science, right? We had some serious problems that would need technology and some scientific approaches. And so I was very invested in teaching kids science. And what ended up happening was the little college that I did have, I was preparing to become an English educator. I wanted to
Okay.
teach writing and
So
reading.
you went to college to be an educator, but
Yeah.
didn't finish. Yeah, in
Yep.
this story. Oh, got you. Okay.
No. 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 So and by then I just got to my gen eds. It wasn't even like
Sure.
I had any training at all as a teacher, right? But
Yeah.
again, we'll get to that. Um, so that was what really inspired me as a teacher to make sure that all of my kids, by the time 2020 came around, they had all these skills. But what happened was, since I came in as a teacher looking to teach kids, poetry and reading and interpretation and creative writing, right? Well, my first students were like first and second graders. Many of them were just functionally illiterate. So I'm
Mm.
here trying to teach them how to rhyme. They're like, okay, let's talk about rhyming. Like, think about things that rhyme with cat and like dog. Like, no, wait.
The basics again. Again, yes.
Exactly, those basic things, right? And so that was like a crash course in just like thinking about that the entire pathway that kids take to mastery. But what happened was this: is that first year when I was the partner teacher, the teacher that I was teaching with also a first year teacher, is our first year teaching, and she had too much on her plate, and she said I need to offload some of the things that I'm responsible for, and so they gave me science.
Mhm.
And I told you about my approach, right? I said, well, if we're going to have kids who are taking science class and they're going to be dealing with cancer and global warming and all these other problems that we have to deal with, right? What should they know how to do at this level? And I said, kids should know how to do a science experiment.
Mhm.
Now, to me, this was duh. What I did not know is that this is revolutionary thinking for 2005.
Okay.
So I took the kids. We did a very simple science experiment. I got um, some lemon lime soda, some vinegar, and some lemon juice, and some baking soda. Right. I put them in small groups. I gave each of the groups 3 cups, and I gave them some baking soda. Okay. And then we had like this little 4 square thing. Right. And in the middle of the 4 square, I had them write the experiment. The experiment is, or the question. And the question is, which one of these cups will make the most bubbles? Right?
Sure.
And then we learned about hypothesis. And so we had this four square, this sheet of paper, divided into four squares, we fold it up. We put the question in the middle, and then we have the hypothesis, we have the experiment, we have the data, and we have the conclusion, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And at the time, I used much simpler words because
Of
hypothesis
course.
was a crazy word for first graders. But it was like, what do you think will happen, right? And then we go in the kitchen, we do the experiment. They have a great time. And we come back in the classroom. We talk about what happened. We talked about why you should not go back and erase your hypothesis if it didn't fit your conclusion. So we're already learning about scientific ethics.
Oh, I love that.
First grade.
Yeah. Start with that, okay? We need
because with
ethics
kids
now.
Exactly, right? Ethics
Yeah.
now, right? Because, with little kids, like, for them, it's all about being right. It's all about just having the right answer, right?
Yeah.
And I'm finding out even 20 years later, I'm still having to fight this idea that science is about having the right answer, right? So they do all this, and then I have all of my students who took my science class going home and telling their parents, when I grow up, I want to be a scientist. Parents had never heard that before.
Yeah.
So I get called into the office a few weeks later, and I'm told that I am the science teacher for the school.
The escalation of promotion. Now, let me ask you a question about this. So, I want to hear, like, what was your family's conversation with you or your community when you told them, hey, I'm teaching first, second, and third, or I'm teaching elementary, and this is what's going on? Were people surprised by it? Were they encouraging? What was that conversation like? Folks, if y'all watching this on a podcast, if you're listening to this on a podcast, you missed his face.
Okay, so first of all, because I don't want to make my family sound like bad people, okay, or unsupportive people, because my parents especially have been incredibly supportive of everything I've ever wanted to do in life. But I was a neurodivergent kid growing up in the 80s, right? Back then, they're just calling it attention deficit disorder.
Sure.
But that's only if you were a professional.
I was going to say, that's pretty advanced for the 80s.
For most people, I was just bad. Like, I was hyperactive. That was the technical. If you want to get technical about, I was hyperactive. And so I did not focus well in school. I was very turned off by the idea of homework. I wasn't usually engaged in my classes, and when I did not get engaged, I tend to do other things and sometimes just honestly cause trouble. I'm not even trying to make it sound like I was just a creative kid in a bad situation. No, if I did not like a class, I would just disrupt it any way I could. And so I was just not a great student, even when it came to my first year of college, because I still did not have the tools I needed to thrive well in an academic setting. I did not do well in college, and that's why I hadn't finished my degree at that point. And so when I tell everybody that I'm a teacher, it's like, well, you don't have a degree. You hate school. Like, I audibly hate school, right? And now you're a teacher. Like, it's like, you just let the fox in the hen house, right?
Yeah.
And they weren't wrong about that part. But so a lot of them, I honestly they didn't believe that I was actually a teacher. They thought I was just sort of like inflating my actual job description.
Sure. Like grandmother.
I don't think. Right. Exactly. So I actually, no one ever like even visited where I worked or even visited my school, despite my open invitations until my sons were enrolled in the school where I worked, and then they had like a grandparents' day, and then like my parents showed up for one of the grandparents' days.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So so it was a lot of skepticism, right? But also not anyone telling me like, you can't do that. Sure. Right? Or trying to talk me out of it. Because honestly, they didn't even believe I was an actual teacher. It's like, look, he's employed, he's making money, he seems happy, whatever. Right?
Just be quiet about it and be grateful.
Just leave it alone.
Yeah. No, thank you.
It was never like the proud boasting, oh, my son's a teacher. It was none of that.
He's working. He's not asking for money.
Exactly, which is honestly, in some cases, considering my past, probably a lot more than some of them expected.
Yeah, that's
I
real.
had a
That's real.
I had a wife, I had a house, I had 2 kids, I was working. Like,
Let's not
we're happy.
complain. Let's just yes. He says he's a
Right.
teacher. Heavy
Sure.
quotes. Sure. Okay.
He's a teacher.
So
Like,
now
I'll be
you
coming back to my sisters, like, would be great to do with like my little nieces, like, it'd be great to do with them, like at this level. A great thing
oh now
is,
you're an
to start doing.
expert.
I'm like giving like child rearing advice based on like my experience now as a
Yeah.
teacher, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, okay, thanks, appreciate it.
Yeah. There
Which
he
it's
goes
okay, it's
again,
fine, it all
saying he's
worked
a
out.
teacher. Right.
Yeah,
No, that's
that
beautiful.
niece
And
is
so
graduating from Stanford today, so we're all happy.
today?
Today she's graduating from
Oh
Stanford.
yes. Shout out. Wait a minute.
Yeah. Hmm?
I ran into you with someone from Stanford at South by. When I was
Really?
recording you, the woman who recorded my story about your youngest self, like the advice you give your youngest self,
Hmm.
she's graduated from Stanford today.
Oh, look at that. See?
Did you
Yes,
not
and
know
they
that?
told me it's a huge class. It says some like 2,000 people or something like that. It's
Oh
crazy.
wow. So
Yeah.
off topic, folks. Sorry about that, folks. This is what happens sometimes. You've been warned. So you're a science teacher for the whole school.
Hmm.
Tell us about that.
Again, baptism by fire.
Yeah.
So there are a few obstacles. One, again, I was a brand new teacher, right?
Yeah.
And I was learning using what people my age call common sense, right? And so I said, well, these kids are going to need a text in order to read from because science is not just about doing experiments and things like that. It's also about referencing text, right?
Yeah.
So they should have a text, but they should be used to referencing a text, right? Not as their only source of knowledge, right? But as a reference. We didn't have textbooks. So I went to a program here in Illinois called Scarce, where they recycle old books. And I got textbooks for like the whole school. Um, and then my other problem was, again, my understanding of science is about what science looks like in the real world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else's understanding of science is just informed by school. And so they did not know what real science looked like. They had no idea what real science looked like.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm saying things like, yeah, we're only going to be reading like 1 or 2 times a week, but we're going to spend a lot of times doing experiments, doing exploration, right? The school where I worked was like 2 or 3 blocks from a nature preserve. And this is a big deal when you live in the city of Chicago, right? So we had this nature corridor, 2 or 3 blocks. It was very set up, had signs and plaques and everything. And I'm walking the kids to this nature preserve and walking the Lakeshore Drive so they can go on the beach and we can actually look at nature, right? While we're
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
biology. And that was like, what? Why are you doing that? Like, ooh, that's liability. Like, okay, yes, liability. Here are the
Sure.
filter forms. Let's get it done. These kids got to learn, right?
Yeah.
But then my third obstacle is that the very first school I was teaching in was private, but it was a private Christian school.
Mm-hmm.
Although I myself am a person of faith, right? I'm also a person of evidence and, science, right? And so there are a lot of questions that I have about, where those two things intersect and where they diverge, right? And some of those divergences and some of those intersections I had a hard time with because people tend not to think about the Bible. They tend to think about the Bible as like a book of science, and it's not. That's not its function, right? So we just can't take. It's like, well, there could not have been dinosaurs because they're not mentioned in the Bible. Like, well, the Bible also didn't mention zebras, but here we are, right?
Yeah.
So, so every once in a while, I find myself having those type of conversations with
Yeah.
parents and with even sometimes some of the staff. The hardest conversations, though, was the ones I had with the administrators. So sometimes I would get a headmaster that was just a little bit too churchy.
Sure.
Yeah. And so I know one time they even had a parent come in because I would not do it and teach intelligent design in my classroom.
Uh-huh.
And he would say stuff and I would be very respectful and very kind because it was also a parent of one of the students, right?
Sure.
And then I would just sort of have to spend the rest of the time sort of like, unpacking some of what he said, or in some cases repacking it. Let's put that back in the box and up here on the shelf,
Oh,
and we'll
he
use
came
that
as a
later.
guest speaker.
Not yeah, as a guest teacher, yeah. So like every Friday or something like that, they would have him come in and he would just teach my class.
Okay. And it was like
Yeah.
some of that is not going to jive with what you were teaching. So let's just,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So like, but I would do things like sometimes like I understand some of these children were just like there because their parents were Christian, whatever, right? And
mm-hmm.
some of these kids were like, at that point they're trying to discover their spirituality. And I think one of the things I hate about people who don't believe is I hate the kind of person who doesn't have a belief system, right? When they
Mm-hmm.
spend a lot of time trashing other people's belief systems.
Yeah,
And my thing is this: it's like, okay, this is what you've chosen, and that's great, that's fine. But just like you don't want me coming to your house trying to tell you how to live your life, don't come to my house trying to tell me how to live my life. And also, you have to
yeah,
realize that in faith communities, some people really need this idea in order to thrive and be balanced and healthy. And if you take that away from them, if you shatter it, are you going to replace it with something else that works?
mm,
So even if I don't believe it, or even if I think it might be a little like not good, in my opinion, I need to let them have that and let them go on their own little faith journey, and they'll figure it out eventually, hopefully. But we'll see. It's not
yeah.
my job to fix them.
I'm loving this conversation because I don't think that in our podcast I've had someone who's taught at a private Christian school yet, and this your background having family who's in the ministry, like, and the ways that you're thinking about this in conjunction with science is really cool. I really appreciate your perspective. When you was your entire career at that school, or did you move around? Did you finish college? What was that?
Mm.
Because right now we're in the middle of,
Mhm.
your family thinks that you're a para professional and all these things. So what was some other parts of your journey? And did you leave that school? What was that like?
I did leave that school. I stayed there for 12 years. Of my 20-year career, I
Okay.
was there for uh, about 12 years.
Wow.
Um, it was a great training ground because I had spaces to make mistakes.
Mhm.
Um, and I think one of the greatest blessings and one of the greatest things about going to that school or teaching at that school is that I was doing it at a time when science was not on standardized tests.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know what that meant?
You
That
can
meant
do
nobody
all
cared
anything
what
you
I
want.
did.
That's
I could do
exactly. Oh
anything I want.
yes.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Nobody cared. Like, and so, whereas that could have been a horrible thing if I was a teacher who didn't care, right? I could have literally just phoned it in. I could have given those kids a worksheet every week
Yeah.
and had them do a packet and done just fine. I mean, as far as career wise.
Mhm.
But no, I also could say, well, we're going to do experiments and we're going to set fires in the classroom and we're going to da 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 da. And they didn't have standards for me. And so when I'm not, have you ever heard of the NGSS standards, Next Generation Science Standards?
No.
Next generation science standards are now the standards that most school districts in the nation have adopted when it comes to teaching children science, right?
Okay.
These standards did not exist when I started teaching in 2005.
I'm gonna say I started teaching in 2006, and I know we didn't have science. I mean, it was definitely not on
Yeah.
standardized tests.
Yeah.
And I remember our school district adopted a science curriculum, and it had all these experiments and these things. And a lot of teachers try to avoid it because it took up so much of their prep time and their break
Mm-hmm.
time to set up all of the beakers and the water and all the things.
Yep.
So I do remember that, but
Yep.
continue.
But and so um, I'm going somewhere with this as far as your answer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so um, when they did Common Core standards, when they first introduced Common Core standards, I remember being in the meeting and I saw the math standards and I saw the reading standards. I said, well, where are the science standards? So dig, 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 dig. Oh, then they present like a website. Okay, here are the science standards. I look at the science standards, and all the science standards were just supporting math and reading. No actual science standards. And they would not
Mm-hmm.
let me out that meeting. Did you know they would not let me out that meeting? I could not go grade papers or prepare for my next class. I had to stay in the meeting. And that's the way my
They
entire
just
career
wanted your
was.
presence. They just
They just
wanted
wanted
to.
my presence there. And so I did, and this is a bad part about having me in a professional development and you're not doing what you're supposed to do. The thing that I did as a child, I still do as an adult, but in a much more slick way. I'm going to be kikiing the whole time.
Oh, you were rebellious.
I'm not rebellious. I just, when it comes to lack of care in educating people, I have very angry and violent tendencies towards that. I don't push anybody. I don't hit anybody. I don't cuss nobody out, but I will mess your stuff up.
So you're the strongly worded email type.
Yes. Per my last email.
Yeah, yeah. So 12
Please
years,
advise.
all caps. 12 years in a school is a long time, and like you said, like you had a lot of training ground, but you didn't finish there. So what was after
No.
that?
So all of that, all those frustrations of trying to like get science, I'd hit a limit as to what I could do. And there was a charter school a couple of doors down, and I remember I was driving home, and there's a guy driving home from work from the charter school. We had a bumper sticker that said, "Honk if you love Star Trek." I love Star Trek. I honked, right? He noticed me. We got to talking. He says, "Hey, look, our science teacher just quit. He ran a high school. He was teaching at a high school. And I would love to have you at our high school because he saw the kind of work I was doing where I was." And so I applied to that school. They didn't hire me for reasons, right? And then he left. He went to another high school. And they were, again, this is a high school that was a science high school. It was called ISHCA. It was Institute for Health Sciences Career Academy. It was an incredible charter school. And their idea was to teach children, particularly Latino children, how to work in the health sciences field. They had 4 science classes a year.
The kids.
4. So they had one semester would be like chemistry, the next semester would be biology, but then in that first semester they also had like human body systems, and then the second semester was like forensic science. It was amazing, right?
Yeah.
And of course, so they're very strong and very heavy on the science teachers. And so he said they have a position for a physics teacher they really need to fill, and you're the kind of physics teacher they need. And so I went over there, I applied, and my mother just passed away. She had just passed away. And I was really just thinking about, okay, the rest of my life. You know, those kind of conversations you have with yourself when something like that happens.
Sure.
Like, okay, what am I doing for the rest of my life? I definitely can't stay here. It's too small. The woman who got promoted to headmaster, she was my partner teacher for a period of time. And she did not respect what I did at all. And now she's going to be my boss.
This is at the Christian school you're at.
At the Christian school, right.
Sure.
And so I had to go. She gave it lip service, but she did not respect what I actually did. So I had to go. So I started this physics school at this health sciences school teaching physics. I'm teaching physics. And again,
Trial by fire, because you haven't taught physics yet.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. I've been teaching physics this entire time.
At high school level?
Yeah. Because, okay, so again, nobody's paying attention to what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
After a while, I graduated from the first and second grade. I'm sort of focusing on middle school. But since I was the only teacher for middle school, I had a very unique opportunity. I could divide the sciences up into their separate domains, and I could spend an entire year just teaching one domain.
Got you.
So that meant that my 6th graders, we started with biology. We went deep into biology. When my 6th graders graduated from middle school and went to high school, they're going to Kenwood, Jones. These are all like what they call selective enrollment schools. They're like, these are the best high schools in the city. They're going to the biology classes like, we already did this stuff with Mr. Raines. I know all the stuff already. And they're killing their biology courses, right? Same thing with their chemistry and their physics, right? Yeah. So I'm teaching high school level physics, high school level chemistry because I have the time, I have the space, and I have the freedom.
I
And my kids
understand.
were smart enough to do it. I
Yeah.
have
I got you.
I have brilliant little black kids. Oh my God, these kids are so smart. I can tell you stories. That's a whole nother podcast. But anyway, so I was but I meant though, like high school physics, I was nervous. I was super nervous, right? Because
Sure.
again, I'm still not degreed.
Yeah. Oh wow. Oh wow.
At the so you
This is turning into a whole different conversation. I don't
this is
know
like
if my
suits.
audience I don't know if my audience has their mouth open, but this is okay. Keep going.
So I'm super nervous, right? And I go into there and I'm talking to like Jankovic, and that's the guy who brought me on. Like
Mhm.
Jankovic, dude. I'm looking at this stuff. I'm not sure if I'm ready to teach this level, just between you and me, right? Like you said, dude, I've seen you work. Trust me, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And I get there and I just start teaching the material. Um, but and this is why I'm so passionate about what I do, right? So here I'm as a person that's never gone to school to be, I'm sorry, that has not finished college to become an educator, right?
Mhm.
I definitely didn't go to college to teach physics, right?
Mhm.
But if you gave me information, I could learn it, right? Without a whole lot of input from other people.
Yeah.
And that was something that was never lionized when I was a child. It wasn't lionized or it wasn't appreciated when I was an adult, right? And it's something that I didn't appreciate, right? And the problem is I always like a condescending jackass to everybody else because I'm like, it's easy, it's common sense. Like I'm thinking everybody else is slow because they're not getting it. So I looked through the material. I said, okay, there's a little bit more rigor here, but we can do it,
Let's
right?
pause for a second. I
Yeah.
want to go back for 1 second because I
Okay.
think it's important that we point out the twice exceptional part of this, right? Where you're saying physics is common sense, and everybody else is looking at you like, and so being twice exceptional, right? Having this
Mm-hmm.
what you now say is neurodivergent, and then
Mm-hmm.
also being which they live together, right? And also being brilliant in your own right, and seeing and having a place that lined up beautifully is something to be in my mind very proud of. I don't think that physics is common sense. I'm just gonna put that out there. But
And
for
that.
someone who's twice
Mm-hmm.
exceptional, who is gifted in these things and can just pick it up and read it and just go and run with it and then teach it, which is how you really know you know something, that's fantastic in my eyes. I just wanted to pause and give you some
Mm-hmm.
flowers for something you probably know already about yourself, but I just wanted to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, folks, oh, you blushing. He said,
Kind
but it's
of.
true, right? It's true.
Yeah.
I can read a physics book and I think that it's common sense, and I've taught for quite a while also. So I just want to pause and say that before you continue your story that you know you are gifted, and I hope that you know that. So
Okay. So I appreciate that. Yes. And I do agree. I am gifted.
there you
I
go.
literally, I did not like sort of start accepting this as a thing until I was like in my late 30s, right? That no,
Sure.
bro, you smart, right? It's only these times you can start saying, oh, gravitational constant is easy. What are y'all talking about? We realize, no, maybe it's not them, it's you.
There you go. Okay, as
Um,
long as we're clear about that.
um, but no. Okay, so remember, my background is actually in literature. I'm a science
Yes.
fiction writer. Okay.
Yes.
Google me, see about me. I'm out there. But so whenever people say like physics is hard, right? Or I had a hard time with physics, or I didn't get physics, right?
Mhm.
Um, it's a lot has to do with the way that we approach physics. And I could uh the one thing that college did give me, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The one thing college did give me is some perspective on education and the history of education, right? Um, Especially when it comes to math and science.
Mhm.
And for people our age, I'm sorry, for people my age, I am 48, I'll be 49 later this month.
Mhm.
For people my age, I think I might have been the last generation of people who may have had like science where you were like doing experiments, and that's only if you went to a nice high school, right?
Same.
You know, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
After that, it was so much like just read the book and study really hard, and then answer
Yeah.
these questions on a test. And even for people older than me, it was the same thing. Like, you know, read the book, study really hard, cram, and then and it wasn't really there was no connection between your life and the thing you were studying in your classroom.
Mm-hmm.
No connection whatsoever, right? One of the things I love to do when I'm teaching with kids, my older kids, my high schoolers, is I present a scenario, right? So I want you to imagine that you're on the porch, right? And you and your family, you and your friends are hanging out, right? And then somebody comes around the corner in the car, and the car's driving real slow. So now you're getting really anxious. You're getting like you're trying to look out and see what happens, right? And then like somebody rolls down the window and you recognize, oh my God, these are my ops, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they roll down the window and they just start throwing bullets at you, just like picking them out the box and just throwing them at you, just tossing them at you. Is everybody gonna be okay? I'm like, yeah. And they start laughing and giggling, right? Is everybody gonna be okay? Yeah. Like, why are they going to be okay? It's like, because they throwing the bullets. Okay, so why doesn't throwing bullets work? Because bullets need to go faster in order to hurt you. Like, right, they need to go faster. That's what guns do, right? They make bullets go faster, right? Yeah. Okay, so we already understand then that in order to get a lot of force out of something, it has to go faster, right? The faster something goes, the more force you get, right? It's like, yeah, we get it. All right, and we also understand that if they did the same thing with Nerf guns, right, and the bullets are coming at you fast, but they like made out of foam, that's not a big deal either, right? Yeah, right. So you guys already understand Newton's second law. Let's go do the math. Right? So, like, when you take the time to make sure that the things that you are teaching actually have a function in people's life, then it doesn't feel so inaccessible and hard and different, and it does feel like common sense, right?
Yeah.
And the reason I keep saying it's common sense because when people get into a fight, right, they're not thinking about math, they're not thinking about physics, right? But they're certainly trying to hit the other person as hard as they can with their fist.
Yeah.
Right? People automatically get that if I am, 5'2" and 90 pounds, and this guy is 6'3" and 300 pounds, that I might not win that fight. Y'all get that already, right? And so there's not like a lot of the stuff that has to do with physics specifically. A lot of it is so intuitive and so common sense. But what happens is whenever you go into a physics class, the first thing a physics teacher does is make you do math. Math and formulas, no narrative, no context, math and formulas. And they never get it. Like if we had more time, I'll tell you about Guillermo and Inez. And Guillermo and Inez, who teach kids the gravitational constant because of their star-crossed relationship in high school. It's a really great way of teaching a really complex idea. But again, even the gravitational constant or gravitational law is intuitive. We get it. We already understand it. It's just that when you start out with the math, it feels non-intuitive.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes so much sense. I'm reflecting on my physics in college and in high school and thinking like how different that experience would have been, even though we did experiments and things like that and we had labs, how different it would have been if it had more connection or they took the time to make more connection to the lived experiences of us in the classroom. It sounded like that you knocked it out the park. Is that right?
Oh,
How did that go?
yes. God, my time at Ishka was incredibly, it was good for me and it was good for my kids. My biggest adjustment was dealing with the volume of students and learning all those names.
Mm-hmm.
And primarily a lot of my education had been, although I have Latinx friends, but my biggest thing was now most of my students were just say from the Spanish diaspora. Okay.
Sure.
And there were some very brand new names that I had to learn how to pronounce. Like I had to learn the rules. Like names have rules, right? Cultural names have rules, right? I had to learn the cultural names of the rules to make sure I'm saying everybody's name right. And I had to memorize 130 of them every year. I'm sorry, no, every semester.
Oh yeah, because it changes.
It kept changing every semester. I would have a new group of kids. And so for the first half of the year, I'm memorizing 130 names, right? And
Yeah.
then I have a brand new set of names the next semester.
And you had to keep going. I mean, that's
Right.
I think that's super. I never thought about that. The language has rules, and the names have rules, and the
Yeah.
and then of course all the cultural components. When you're talking about if that's not your lived experience, or if you don't have a full lived experience of the community in which you're teaching, right? Like you said, I'm from Chicago, but this is not necessarily a part of my daily after work or before work life. Um, did you
Like it's
go
it's
ahead?
Andrea Jackson and Andrea Jimenez. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Say your
Yeah,
name
on
right.
heel
Say the
and
name right.
angel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
made that
exactly.
mistake. It's not angel, it's on heel. Like, oh,
Is out in Hill, right?
sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. So science physics teacher,
Mm-hmm.
science teacher for a Christian school.
Mm-hmm.
How many years in are we now?
So now I'm teaching physics. This is year 13 for me. Year 13, I'm teaching physics. And I'm loving it. I do 2 years at Ishka. And then we have now the whole time that I'm doing this, I am going to school, right? Intermittently, I'm trying really hard to stay away from loans, because like when you learn, like I really wish I had not learned about loans back when I first started school. Then I'd be in debt like everybody else, but at least I'd be finished with school, right? But because I learned about loans and had like a certain amount of financial literacy, I'm like, no, this is predatory. Somebody should go to jail. And I would not take out a loan, so I would work, make money, and then pay for my own school.
Sure.
And that was hard, especially raising kids and stuff. But so but what ends up happening is that because I don't have a degree, right, people hire me on like conditionally as long as I'm still going to school, which I am, right? But then of course, whenever it's time to let people go, I'm the first one to go. I'm the least valuable on paper. So I did 2 years at this school, and there was a strike. I'm a union baby, and so I also have a big mouth, and I'm visible. So the next summer they let me go, and so I went over to a charter school that was in the far south of Chicago, a very historic neighborhood called Pullman, right? And I went from a high school that had like a great science program back to a high school that had no science program to teach physics. And charter schools, I don't want to offend anybody who may be listening to the podcast, but charter schools do have some challenges when it comes to teaching, especially teaching children in marginalized communities. I'll say that. And this particular charter school definitely did a lot of really great talk, like some wonderful talk. Like we don't let cops on the campus, right? Which I loved. But when it actually came to how they were educating those kids, there were some huge gaps, like from Jump Street. And I kept pushing back on making sure kids were being educated and educated properly. And ultimately, there was some pretext, and I was suspended. I was suspended for not following directions, right? And then, and I was suspended March 2020.
Okay.
They handed me the suspension, and a week later, the whole school
Pandemic.
shut down for
Yeah.
With
What's up, everyone? It's me, Dr. Asia. So, just quickly reaching out because I have something I want to share with you all. My friend Stacy Taylor, Brandon, and I are coming to you with something new. It's called Podcast and Pause, an unbook club for Black educators. So instead of a traditional book, what we're going to be doing is talking through episodes from the exit interview, a podcast for Black educators. And then in our sessions and our time together, we're going to also be talking about wellness and healing practices that Black folks in education can use to be well. This is open to paraprofessionals, admins, school psychs, teachers, professors, folks who support youth in any capacity. We love to see you there. You'll find information on my stories, and then you'll also see in the next week or so registration landing page coming soon. So make sure that you check us out. All right, peace.
Pandemic. So eventually they did let me go. And and then this is my come to Jesus moment, because there's something else I had time to do since over the pandemic. I over the pandemic I was taking courses online virtually, right? And I was just packing them in there because I didn't have to worry about time. I didn't have to worry about distance. They were giving me a break on the money, and I was just packing classes in there. I was in school all day. But I was also taking jobs teaching virtually also to support myself. And so, again, this is why I have a panel light and a really nice microphone. And I have literally 3 screens up here. I have one that I can write on, so I could do like a digital whiteboard. I went all in on the pandemic. But as I'm taking classes, I'm now getting into my educator courses. And they're not helpful.
Well, and you're also had a lot of teaching experience by this time.
Exactly. I had a buttload of experience. And so I had enough experience to sit in this class. I'm sitting here with my, my 20, 21-year-old counterparts. And I'm sitting there in this class with my big 40-some-year-old self saying, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
That's a horrible way to teach geometry. And then I'm realizing, oh my God, for my entire life, people have been telling me that I'm not a real teacher because I don't have a certification. Only to learn that they don't teach you anything in college when it comes to being an actual teacher. I was furious. And, I only had one teacher who did it right. Her name was Dr. Jennifer Slate. God bless her. She's doing great research, by the way, about algae that has this glass-like membrane around it that protects it. Oh my God. And she was sharing her research with me, and she was showing us how to be scientists for our students and how to make sure that our students were being scientists in the classroom.
Yeah.
She was the only professor that I had there that knew her job and knew what she was doing and was preparing me for the job that I wanted to do. Every other math, science professor there was wasting my time and my money.
Can I pause for a second?
Yeah, sure.
In the middle of this is something, it's so interesting that you're saying this, because what folks find out, like you said, a lot of folks who go into education go in and start maybe at a TFA, or they start in their bachelor's degree at 19, 20, whatever that is. And they don't find out until after that their pre-service time was a waste.
Yeah.
Right? Or that didn't prepare me, or there's big gaps, or that their professors hadn't been in the classroom either ever or in years, or don't know what's happening with youth. And so they feel like, well, I had to do that because I wouldn't have been able to get a job if I didn't, and kind of justify it. And I say they, me included. And so for you to be going back to school and getting into those pre-service classes, having now, 14 years of teaching experience, and seeing they're taking our money, this is a waste of time. I know what it is to teach children, and this is not going to cut it. I would imagine for you and others who've had to go and kind of do I guess, quote unquote, backwards way of doing it. I could see being disenfranchised by higher education's or systems expectations that higher education prepares us for the classroom. So this is just really fascinating to hear you to share the story in this way.
Yeah. So I think you're starting to see the glimmer of the end of our, like, the point of the interview, right? You see
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
coming,
yeah. I
right?
know.
So, yeah. So, but here's the really funny part about it, right? I told you I don't shut up. Like, I'm not going to be quiet about things, right?
Yeah,
I'm not going to insult a person um, in front of them, right? But I will have an entire, like, private group chat with the rest of the students in my classroom about how our math for educators professor may be a vampire. I had evidence. Not just any vampire. I think this dude was Dracula on God.
okay.
But this is how I push back, right? So I'm constantly, like, finding respectful ways to push back, and I'm being very respectful in the way that I talk about some of the shortcomings that I'm seeing in my classes.
Yeah.
My college, okay, so again, unique situation and a unique person coming together. My professor was like a superstar geometry professor, and he was pretty good at what he did. Not so great at, like, he wasn't so great at teaching us how to teach in the classroom, right? But he was a great geometry professor, right?
Got it.
Geometry for educators. But he was retiring that year. He was in his 60s. He had an illustrious, incredible career. He was very charismatic, handsome teacher. Like, this guy was definitely student crushes, like, his whole career, right?
Sure.
So he's the kind of student, he's the kind of professor that everybody loves, right? And he was even, like, viral on Instagram for, like, doing an Instagram with his daughter where she had him pronounce. This is the Greek teacher I was telling you about earlier. The Greek teacher who taught me how to say my name. Where they had him saying, like, English words with his Greek accent, and it went totally viral. We did, like, the two truths and one lie. He's like, yeah, I'm an internet star.
And
So
sure enough, that was the truth.
that was the truth, yeah. So, but one of the things they were adding, because they were just now figuring out, again, remember, this is happening in 2022, 21, 22. They're saying we need to add a computer science to this geometry course. So they want the geometry course. They also wanted to teach geometry while teaching computer programming and coding. My geometry professor was an old dog. That was a new trick. And he was about to retire. So they hired me to teach the computer science session of my own geometry class.
Aurelius, this is a big much. Folks, I know you keeping up. My audience is keeping up with what's going on here. Okay? You can do anything out there, folks. Forget it. Just say yes. Just sign up.
You can grow wings and fly. You can do anything.
You can fly. You can beat Dracula. You can do anything. Okay.
And you also have to realize that, like, how people have imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, I guess you could say I was the imposter, right? Like, I should not have been there, right? I should not have been doing these things. If the thing is, you go to school, get a degree, get certified, and then, climb up from there, right? I was just, I learned that I had to, first of all, I learned that, and this is just, especially for the younger teachers, I learned that I had to be my own cheerleader. Like, forget that humility stuff. Forget that shy stuff. Like, say that when you at church. Say that for where, like, you were talking to your friends on Friday night, right? When you are at your job, talk your stuff.
Yeah.
And talk your stuff not, like, apologetically. Look, if you are a marginalized person, a black person, a woman, a queer person, whatever the case may be, if they're going to discount your skill, they're going to discount your skill. They don't need an excuse or a reason, right? So don't think that if I'm quieter, then I'm not going to intimidate so many people. If they're going to be intimidated by you shining and doing what you do, they're going to be intimidated no matter what you do. Even if you dim the light, they're still going to have a problem with you because they're going to see what you can do and how you move. So I was always in my classes just talking about the things that I know how to do. And that's
Mm-hmm.
how they knew that I also was teaching computer science in middle school, and I was also teaching computer science and making at this point a fabrication in high school. We didn't even talk about that part yet. And this is where the next part of my journey comes from. I was doing all of that already. They needed a computer science teacher. They didn't have anybody on staff that could handle it. And so they paid me, obviously, a lot less they would have paid a real computer science teacher. But I was getting my money back from the school, so I was happy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wait, you're not teaching at this point. Well, you're excuse me. You're not in a K-12 environment. You're
Mm-hmm.
teaching in higher ed this computer science class.
Mm-hmm.
I need to ask you the question because
Please.
yeah, what I want the audience to know what you're doing now in connection to that. Because
Okay.
they have to know like what you're doing, and I'm totally out of order from what I normally do with this podcast. But I want them to hear, because you talked about the fabrication piece, what
Mm-hmm.
you're doing now and how you got there.
So I teach at the Museum of Science and Industry. Or I'm sorry, the Griffin Museum of Science and Industry, because Ken Griffin bought the museum. Um, and I teach in their fab lab. For those who are not familiar, a fab lab is short for fabrication laboratory, and it's a maker space. And in this maker space, basically what we do is we teach people to design and fabricate whatever they want. So this idea came out of a TED talk that was done some years ago called "How to Make Anything," and the idea is that we create spaces where people can make whatever they want. And so in other spaces, you might hear them called maker spaces, right?
Yeah, libraries. I've heard that.
Exactly. A lot of libraries have them. By the way, if you live in a community, check your local library. I bet you they have a 3D printer.
Yes.
Um, and so I run particularly the camps part. Okay. And so my experience as a teacher, my experience as a artist, my experience as a designer and a hobbyist, and a technician, and a physicist, all this comes together, where I teach these classes where I teach kids how to hold their dreams in their hand. And I love it. I love it. All the stuff that frustrated me about being a teacher is gone. So everything that I love about teaching, I get to experience every day. Everything that I hated about teaching, gone. Except for obnoxious middle school boys. I'm sorry. That is a constant in the universe. But
That's
outside
what
of
it
that,
is.
yeah, you can't get rid of that. But it's a dream job. It's a dream job for me, definitely. And it's a dream job for other teachers too, honestly. I feel so bad when I talk about my job to other teachers because you can just see them drooling.
Mm.
Like, oh my gosh, you come up with a plan for a class and it's fully funded. Like, yeah, yeah. Like I'm so used, and that was the hard part for me coming to this job. I was so used to working in under resource and lack. I was like, yes, if you just bought me one Lego set, I can make it work for 30 kids. Like, or we could buy you 30 Lego sets. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Oh.
So I love that part. And so how did I get there?
Yeah, because when I met you at South by, you said this. You said this is where I work, and it's my dream job, and I love it so much. And so yeah, how did
Just the fact that I was at South by Southwest, um, my director. I'm sorry, I interrupted. My apologies. I saw your.
no,
Say
you're
something.
good. Go ahead.
My director last year came in with like a South by Southwest sweatshirt on. And I know they had gone somewhere, right? I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I've always wanted to go to South by Southwest. He's like, we'll make it happen. And then walked away with his Coke. And so, like, when it was about
Yeah.
time to start, like, getting tickets, I was like, yeah, remember when you said I could go to South by Southwest? Just thinking, I'm so used to people saying things and just not following through. It's like, oh, yeah, let's make that happen. And so they paid for me I had a nice hotel and everything. Incredibly blessed. I had I met you. I met so many great educators. I had wonderful conversations. And it just filled my cup.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I loved it. It was great. And it's so weird because when I came back, everybody in my department was in a panic because some things had changed. And they're like, oh my God, this is horrible. And I'm just like, y'all think these are problems?
Yeah.
Like, the feeling like talking to me at the museum is like talking to like if you ever had like an immigrant parent and you try and tell them about your problems.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Like, you think this is bad?
You don't have problems. I had problems.
Yeah. No, oh my goodness. Yeah, you had mentioned that to me too. That I said, how was it when you got back? And you said everybody thought things were on fire and it wasn't as bad to you as it could have been.
Yeah.
Um,
So they added an extra class. Oh, really? You have more students than you planned for.
Yeah, but you still have the supplies that you need. Is that correct?
Exactly,
Okay.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to, I want to. No, go ahead. Tell us a story.
Okay.
How this job? Because the reason why I want to pause on this for a minute is because on this podcast, we ask people, what do you do now? And again, you're the first person that we've had on the podcast who works at a museum, any type of museum. And I know that that's a dream for a lot of folks. And so I think it's really important for us to spend some time here talking about, they can't replicate any other part of your story. Let's just be real. That's you're blessed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's important for people to think that this is a possibility for them, regardless of whatever the situation. So how did we get here?
So it goes back to when I was teaching at the small private school, right? My then wife got a message that there was going to be an educator night at the Museum of Science and Industry. So we went, and they had a session where we got to go into the Fab Lab and 3D print a little creature, right? So this is my first time seeing a 3D printer or even hearing of a 3D printer. And this is like 2009, I believe. Like 2008, 2009. So we go there, and at this point, I'm already experiencing a lot of frustration with teaching science. I'm frustrated with my administration. I'm frustrated with not just my administration, but just the entire country's approach to science, okay? Because remember, this is before everybody was talking about STEM all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was like, oh, science, will give it 15 minutes twice a week.
You
and
swap between science and social studies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was super frustrated, and I also understood that I had this saying in my classroom that it's important that I teach my kids not to be consumers but to be producers. Mm-hmm. And so I felt like a lot of my course was going towards creating good consumers and not producers. So I walked into this lab, right, and I just started talking to the people who are running the lab. And they're on the same page I am. They have the same concerns, right? I have found my little teacher tribe because every other teacher I talk to looks at me like I'm crazy. And so I give them my number, I give them my email address, say, oh, guys, I would love to do this again, or if you guys are having stuff, just let me know, right? And a few months later, they came back with this thing. It was like, we've been having a conversation about bringing children into the lab. And although we initially designed this to be for high schoolers, I think you can make this work for your middle schoolers. And so about a year after that, year and a half, there was a program where every Friday I brought my students from the little private school, my middle schoolers from the little private school, to the Museum of Science and Industry to work in the Fab Lab and learn how to use the Fab Lab to make whatever they wanted. An amazing opportunity, an amazing experience. They did that for my entire rest of the time there at Cambridge, at that small school. I would sometimes it'd be a Wednesday, sometimes it'd be a Friday or a Thursday. But yeah, after towards the end of school, I'll put them on a bus, take them to the museum, and they would spend time 3D printing, doing electronics, working Arduino, computer coding, whatever. I had this one girl, I'll never forget her, Kennedy Springfield. I don't. She's graduated from something now. She's an adult. So yeah, Kennedy Springfield. Um, she was amazing because she was the one girl in my who would not like science, and I kept preaching science is your life, and whatever you love to do, that's the science you focus on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said something like your science is your research is your hobby or whatever like that, or your love or your passion, whatever. Anyway, this girl, again, middle school girl, she's all about like being girly, right? She's all into girl presentation. Love it, no problem. Um, she did not know what to do with her science project until I helped her realize that a science project is a great excuse to try out makeup, to test
Yeah.
makeup.
Yeah.
So for all 3 years I had that girl, every single one of her science projects was testing a different type of makeup in its durability, its color, its long lasting, whatever. This girl in the Fab Lab made a shelf using a like $80,000 machine called a ShopBot. And it's a robot that cuts wood, right? And
Mm-hmm.
she made herself a shelf for all of her fingernail polishes. And I could tell you
Yeah.
stories about the things that kids made in my lab. And I'm at this really great point in my life, in my career, where they're all adults now. And they're telling, like, I'm meeting them, right? Because Chicago's a small town. I don't care what anybody tells you. You're going to run into everybody you know. So behave yourself. If you ever come here, behave yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But just 3 weeks ago, I ran into one of my students waiting outside of Chipotle to get food for his sister. And he was a dinosaur nerd. And he said, Mr. Raines, your class changed my life because it was the first time like I felt validated. Like I felt like I could figure out who I was while I was in your class. And I just love this thing. And so I'm like, what are you doing now? It's like, oh, I work at the Field Museum and I teach kids how to make 2 and 3 dimensional models related to paleontology and dinosaurs.
Mm.
Right? And so I said, you want to come with me? And so I took him to I was actually going to a grand opening for this brand new makerspace that's in Hyde Park. And he's like, dude, I'm wearing my paint stained shorts and stuff. I was like, just come with me. I got you. And by the way, his name is Samir Ali. This kid is a star. All right. If you look him up, Samir Ali is amazing. Okay.
All right.
And I introduced him to my vice president. I introduced him to the guy who ran the makerspace. I introduced him to all the people at the museum that I work with. And, and he like got so many contacts and networked. And after everything had died down and I was about to head back home, he still hadn't gotten that Chipotle for his sister, by the way. He had to make so many apologetic text messages. But he said, Mr. Raines, I just finished. I got let go from my last job because of the budget cuts. And for a long time, he had like long hair, really long hair. When I met him, he was like clean shaven. He like just cut all his hair off.
Mm.
He said, and I didn't know what I was going to do. Like I even cut my hair because like I got to find a job. I got to make sure that's not a barrier. And I just thought that like I didn't have a future. I didn't thought I wouldn't be able to do anything else. He was like 22. I thought I would be able to. All right. I would be able to do anything else. And I just felt like really bleak about my future. And now I feel so great. He said, you haven't changed. He said, you haven't changed. Like, you're still doing that for me. And I appreciate you so much. And it just made me feel so good, So, so having that experience with the museum, giving my students a chance to do those things, right? It not only opened up their world as students, right? But it opened up my world as an educator.
Yeah.
Because now I had because they were teaching me how to use these machines too. Like oftentimes my kids were learning how to use the machines before I learned how to use them.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, they're like, Mr. Raines taught me how to 3D print. No, I did not. I just gave you the space and time to learn. And so what started happening for me is that I found myself doing this with the museum, When I went over to Ishka, I was afraid that like relationship, like, so I wanted Cambridge to keep that relationship up, like the school where I was, and they would not do the work to create that relationship so they could still do that for those kids.
Sure.
So when I left, that opportunity went with me.
Sure.
And when I went to Ishka, now I had these high school kids. It was a lot further away from the museum than the school where I was working. But we had an engineer come with buses, and we figured out a way to get them to come there too. So I was doing this with my high school kids, and there again, changing like their way. Like I had a kid one time, Miguel. I taught him how to use a 3D printer, and in the space of a week, he went from just like doing like almost not just a 3D printer, but I taught him how to use CAD software. In the space of a week, he went from designing like a rectangular box with like four cylinders on it to like a full van with like a little gear shift in and a steering wheel and everything like that in the space of a week. And he said, "Oh my God, I know what I want to do now. Like I want to design cars for a living. Like I want to work for Ford. I want to I want to make the best Mustang ever." And just giving them that opportunity, just like it just opened their world. And after a while, and on top of that, what I did not know, and what the guy that I work with now told me, is that like he told me that he said I changed his life. Like one of the guys at the museum, one of the guys who facilitated the Fab Lab, I remember he called me on on a Friday evening about some stuff. We were trying to work out some problems with getting the kids there, some logistics with getting the kids there. He called me on a Friday evening, and he was so apologetic. He's like, "I'm so sorry to call you after hours on a Friday. I know." And I just said to him offhanded, because I still had sort of this toxic mentality at the time, and I resented it so much. I was like, "Dude, man, we're teachers. We're never off the clock, right?" And I was just an offhand thing I said to him. Right, yeah.
Mentality. I love that you said that. Continue.
Right, it's just like this idea, like we're always working, right? Which is literally, I was grading papers when he called me. But he said, but he had never thought of himself as a teacher. And it wasn't after we started working together at the museum that he told me that we had like the same kind of background. He came from a family where he wasn't appreciated. He was always seen as a bit of screwed up. He worked a little bit differently. And he just always saw himself as like a really bad student. And he never thought of himself as a teacher. He was like 60. So they see the way I affect my students, and they see how I take what they do and I'll take it outside of the museum and try and spread it elsewhere. And they're like, "We're going to hire you. We don't know how, we don't know in what regard, but we're going to hire you." And they kept making job offers for like, it was like peanuts. Like, I can't take that job. Like,
sure, yeah.
You guys are not paying enough money. I can't take that job. I got mouths to feed, right?
Yeah.
And so what they ended up doing is they end up creating a job that fit me to a T. And it was a job where I would teach children how to work in a Fab Lab and help them run that Fab Lab. They offered me the job. After lockdown ended, I needed to get back. I had to get my teacher legs back. I realized that there were some physical things about being a teacher that I always taken for granted that I lost sitting in a chair teaching from a screen all day.
Sure.
So I started teaching art classes and programming and fabrication classes at some of the local high schools for a local community arts organization to make money. And they sent me all over the city, and I would go to the school and I would teach finish teaching class, and I would be exhausted from like 155-minute class. I'm exhausted. And so I said, I need to get back in the classroom. And so, and I wanted to go to a place where, again, I knew that I'd have some space to grow and, figure things out. And so I went back to the small Christian school. A lot of things had happened with that school since then. The same principal was there, but since that time, that principal had hired me several times to come back and teach science and computer coding classes. So I would do an afternoon and teach them. And so I went back there for a year. Some other things are going on personally. My marriage, I was being separated. Um, again, I was just coming out of this really horrible time with the pandemic, and still recovering from some of the stuff that happened there. And I needed a space. And one thing I will say about that school is, despite some of the professional shortcomings, everybody there loved me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not like, oh, we love you because we work with you. It was like literally, they the care they took for me as a person, as a man. It was a safe space. So I said, I'm going to go back here, and because this is a safe space for me emotionally, I need to be going to work every day someplace where I feel supported emotionally as well as
Mm-hmm.
professionally. The emotional part was there. Professional part was way worse than it had ever been.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was really, really bad. Because some things that happened with the school that I really can't get into. But I think the day that I quit, about quiet quitting, I try not to take sick days. Um, Not because I have some toxic thing of like, I got to be at work every day, which it was more like, I know that if I leave my kids with somebody else, they're going to mess it up.
Yeah, sure. Oh yeah, that's all of us. We understand that. You come
I
back and
remember
it's like, what happened?
I remember leaving a very simple quiz with a substitute one time when I was teaching high school. It was like a very easy quiz. Like, just give them this quiz for 15 minutes. The rest of the class is theirs. They know what to do, right? And I gave the quiz, and I watched this substitute pass it out like it was a worksheet. Like, like I left very explicit instructions about how to proctor the quiz and all that kind of stuff, right? And like I was about to go on this excursion with these other students, and as I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking back, I see them just taking the quiz and passing out like, okay, finish this worksheet. Da, da, da. I'm like, dude, no.
That's not what I said.
This is why I never take sick days. I took a sick day. And I took a sick day, and at the beginning of the year, I had to buy my own science equipment. I've been buying my own science equipment for my entire career. Some of it I have donated, some of it comes out of my pocket, but it's all mine.
Yeah.
Where I go, it goes. When I came back to the school, I brought my science equipment with me. A lot of the stuff that I've been using to teach physics at the high school level, right? I had a mass spectrometer. Um, but when I came back from my sick day, the headmaster of the school, the principal of the school, had taken all of my science equipment and moved it and cleared it out of my room. Um, because she said it just looked a mess. And I'm like, well, remember at the beginning of the year when I asked you for some shelving so I can shelve and store the science equipment?
Mm.
And she said, yeah, but it was messy. And that was it. I quit. I didn't like walk out the building because I've only had to leave students in the middle of the year twice in my career.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, forget what you want to do. This is my school now. And I ran the class however I wanted. The kids had a great time. They wrote incredible stories. They made virtual reality video games. Not virtual reality. They made interactive video games using Google Slides. I taught them
Mm.
to. We just had 3D printing. Um, I had this one kid. He found out he was a novelist. He had been like functionally illiterate for most of his school career. But when we stopped asking him to like, when he was in a space where he could just write every day, um, without thinking of that as an assignment, he had these incredible stories, and the grammar and spelling wasn't horrible.
Yeah.
Like a lot of his impediment had just been like the pressure that we put on him when we say, well, like, we need you to write it this way in this particular space, right? He wrote this incredible, like, really deep, dramatic story. I had to save it because when I left, they got rid of all their files, and so I had to just like download all their work, all their artifacts. And man, I had so much talent in my room. I found out,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
and I just took the day to like we're still doing math, we're still doing science, we're still doing English and literature, we're still doing all the subjects, but we're going to do them my way, and we're going to do them a way that works. And the
Yeah.
kids loved the class because it did not feel like class every day to them. It just felt like a hang session where you're talking philosophy and politics
Mm.
and literature and science and philosophy. And they just loved it. They loved it. They had these new rolling chairs, and we just put the chairs in a circle. and I had my little tea. I had my little teacup. This is my little teacup that I would use, and I had like a little tea station, so I had loose tea, and they knew that whenever I was making my loose tea, that it's time to talk about the reading, and we just have a conversation about the reading, and they loved it. And my kids produced so well. But of
Yeah.
course, at the end of the year, they don't want me back. But by that time, I'd already secured my job at the museum and science industry. So I was like, "Oh yes, we've been thinking about." I was just about to call you and tell you I quit. Sorry,
Like
and I
before you
left.
go ahead and finish that sentence about what you're
Yeah,
thinking about, let me tell you.
you can't fire me.
Right. Uno out. Thank you. Actually, skip you, reverse
I
back to me. Draw forward,
swear,
first
I hope
red,
that happens
Uno's
to me
out.
again. I'm using that. If that
Yeah.
ever happens to me again, I'm using that. Uno out.
Yeah. Uno out. I'm out. Thanks. Thought you're
Yeah,
gonna win. No.
and so
Yeah.
yeah, and so I get to go back in classrooms. I get to mentor other teachers. I get to teach kids. It's a dream for me. It's a wonderful opportunity. If you ever
I
come to the city
love
of
it.
Chicago, make sure you make the Griffin Museum of Science and Industry a stop, and come say about me. And if you like, if you hit me up on my IG or whatever like that, I might be able to get you some free passes. That's my name. That's my other thing. I really got into social media before I realized that it's a bad idea to be super transparent. Um, so all my passwords are password.
Oh, and that's the thing, and you just there's
No, no,
another
no.
group of people who just
My
wrote
literal
that
passwords are
down.
not passwords, but if you are looking for me on any social media, just literally use my name and you'll find me.
There it is.
Yeah, I'm not Dark Teacher 728. I'm not. That's not me.
Yeah, I, Aurelius, this has been, this has been a really cool story, and I think, you know, how you came into education, where you are now, so much reminds me of my own journey. Only in that you just kind of have to see what happens, right? I think that folks get really into this A to B to C to D, and
Mm-hmm.
they leave no room for magic,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And I think that's really important. That's something that I live by is leave room for magic,
yeah.
because we met at South by Southwest because we both left room.
Oh God. Oh, are you gonna talk about that?
What?
Can I talk about that?
What?
Oh,
Go
we left.
ahead.
Oh, you left. I thought you meant left the room.
No, when we both no, we both left education in a traditional
Okay.
sense.
I thought you were talking about the. I thought you were talking about the particular seminar that was going on that made us leave the room. Like this is some BS.
Oh no, we're not getting into that. We are not going down that road. No, but
I'm
and we
sorry.
and, that's the rebellious spirit of both of us, and I'm not mad
Mm-hmm.
about it because it got me a lot of places. But I do, and I do feel like there is this piece of you have to dare to be powerful. You have to show up for yourself. You have to leave room for magic, because if you don't, all you're gonna do is still be silenced. You're still
Mm-hmm.
not gonna fit. It's best to just say what you have to say. And like I said, we wouldn't have met in that space when I'm walking up with my microphone had we both not made decisions all from 2005 on that got us there. Um, and it's risk, it's following your ancestors, it's being in prayer, whatever it is for the person. But I feel like so strongly we have to stay in alignment with ourselves and what we're meant to do, and not what other people believe that we should be doing or
Mm.
what makes sense for us. um yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, you're
you've
right.
had this long path in education, and you've shouted out some students and a couple of your professors. Is there a
Mm-hmm.
black educator that you would like to shout out on our show, or multiple?
Like two. And again, I did not have a wealth of black educators.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the first one is my high school African American history teacher, Mr. Broughton. Mr. Broughton was a really smart guy. Unfortunately, he was teaching high school. I was a senior. I think I was in a class maybe with a couple of juniors and sophomores. But he was also a really big guy, right? And high schoolers are not nice people, like they're sociopaths. So Like they used to give him a hard time, right? Excuse me, pardon me. But this is my high school African American history class. I never had like African American history. Um, and so I respected him because he was teaching me that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he added respect when, again, ADHD. If you're doing something and I'm not engaged, so while he go over the classroom rules and expectations, I'm looking through the book because they're the same expectations every year, right? I'm looking in the book and I'm looking, okay, who wrote this book? Like, first it was African American history. I bet it's written by a whole bunch of white folks. I bet you.
Mm-hmm.
So I go in there, I see my high school teacher's name in the book of people who consulted on the book.
Mm.
I'm like, dang, okay, wait, let me pay attention. Like, oh, he bowed about it. But it was but Mr. Broughton was one of the few teachers who didn't just recognize me as being smart, because teachers have been telling me all my life I was smart. It was always, you smart, but, right?
Yeah.
Like, you super smart, but. He was just like, you smart. And then he did something that nobody had ever done for me. He gave me an award for being good in his class. Like, whenever they have the award ceremonies at schools,
Mm-hmm.
I was never going up there. I didn't have perfect attendance. Anything that they were giving an award out for, I'm going to get a grade for it. I went on the honor roll, none of that. And I was at my high school, my senior year of high school, and he gave me an award for outstanding performance in African American history. And I was in the school gym in front of like 1,000 kids, like walking down the gym floor and getting this award in front of everybody. And I'd never had an experience like that. And that just meant so much to me, right? And that's like part of my journey to start to believe that I wasn't like worthless, that I wasn't like useless, or I wasn't a problem, that like somebody actually respected me, and appreciated the fact that I was smart, right? That was a big thing for me. The second teacher, who's really the first teacher, was Miss Kim's. Way back when I was in grammar school, I had to be like in second grade, I think, second or third grade. She was there for a couple of years. Miss Kim's was this, in my memory, beautiful black woman, right? And this is back when I was like, I was going to a mostly white school on the north side of Chicago, northwest side of Chicago. Anybody doesn't know about Chicago, Chicago will beat you on racism, beat Mississippi on racism. Chicago against everybody in racism. And so I'm at this little black boy going to school with all these white kids in the early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was getting some really harsh anti-black messaging. But there was this one black, ironically though, my first 3 teachers were all black. But there's this one black teacher in particular. I did not know her role at the school. I'm not sure what her job was. But the sister was clean every day. She was gorgeous. Miss Kim's. And I did not obviously get along with the other kids at school. And I was fighting all the time. And I developed, because this is such a formative time for me, I was also developing some really bad social habits and some horrible anger issues. And so I'd be playing by myself, literally just playing Knight Rider by myself, talking to my fake watch and pretending like I'm driving around the school. It was so sad. Like, I was a pitiful child in hindsight. And Miss Kim's would talk to me like during recess, and we just have conversations. And I'm not sure how many bad people are in the audience, but when you're a bad kid and you're in trouble so much that all the people in charge of like your suspensions and whatever, or your detentions, just start like talk to you about their life, like they grown folks' life.
you in there so long, they're like, well, give me some advice.
Like, yeah, Mr. Jackson messing up again.
Yeah.
It was like, but she wouldn't talk to me. Like, she would talk to me about like her, like, I remember her talking to me about like, she was really happy that she that she might finally be having a baby, and she was really happy about being a mommy. And she was like, it was like kid appropriate. I don't remember anything like inappropriate, but she was just being transparent and honest and talking to me like a friend, the way an adult would talk to another kid, like a friend, right? Mm-hmm. And I did not appreciate it because I was such a little jerk at that point. But we had these gymnast rings because this is the '80s. They let us die. They didn't care. We had these gymnast rings in the playground, and one kid had fallen off the gymnast ring and broken their arm, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the gymnast rings were supposed to be tied up and not used anymore, but somebody would always untie the gymnast rings and you just go play on them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went to go play on the gymnast rings, right? I'm swinging back and forth and I'm having a good time, and Miss Kim's came over and very gently told me, do not play. Aurelius, you're not supposed to play on the gymnast rings. Let's get down. Let's go do something else, right? And I was mad because I was having fun. I was enjoying myself. She wanted to stop my fun so I could do something else. And I took the rings and I hit her in the head with them. I was a large child. Do you know that woman still talk to me? I hurt her. Like I didn't like. I remember an ambulance. My dad said there could have been an ambulance, otherwise it would have been a lawsuit. I remember an ambulance.
Sure.
I don't know if they came here for her, but I remember an ambulance.
Yeah.
So, incredibly violent for no good reason, and she was just doing her job.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't try and hold it over my head. She talked to me every day. That woman forgave me, and I did not say sorry. I did not apologize, and she still talked to me every day. And I did not appreciate it at the time, but when I reflected on that as an adult, especially after I became a teacher, I'm like, that's the blueprint. That's the blueprint. That's the blueprint. Like I get choked up every time I think about that woman because I can't find her. I cannot find her. I've tried. I've gone through all the CPS records that I know how. I cannot find her. But I'm sorry, Chicago Public School for people who don't live in Chicago.
What elementary school was this?
This is Hiram Belding Elementary School. And so when I became a teacher, I always had like these really horrible children who would just treat adults horribly or treat everybody else horribly, right? And I always was the guy who would like just sit down with those kids and just have and like build these relationships with these kids.
Yeah.
And build these, and then so they would like bring the bad kids to me. I'm like, please stop. First of all, stop it. And I appreciate the fact that y'all don't call them bad. I'm glad y'all don't call them bad. Thank you for not doing that. But still,
Yeah.
it doesn't do any good if you still treat them like they bad. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Ooh,
You know,
yeah.
all that, like when people like tone police you on like what you call kids and how you talk to kids, I get that, and it is very important. I'm not downplaying that, right? But none of it makes a difference if you don't actually change the way you treat them.
Yeah.
But anyway, they'll bring these kids, and like I have like YouTube videos of like there's a video on my YouTube of me teaching a kid how to build a circuit. He's 4 years old. I taught him how to build an electrical circuit. But the backstory of that video is that he was in the room with me because he had been screaming at his kindergarten teacher nonstop for the whole morning, and she's like, "You need to take him. I'm going to lose my job." He was like being that difficult. So I have him come to my room. We have a conversation, and we'll build stuff together. And we talk about like how to be nice to people and how we want people to treat us, and what some ways we can do some really great things. And I just did what Miss Kim's did for me every single time. Yeah,
I love this.
those are my two teachers.
Thank you. Last question.
Mm-hmm.
In your work, you're supporting a lot of folks. Young folks, older folks, your own children. And you know the question I'm about to ask. For you, what does it mean to be well?
For me, to be happy with yourself, to be secure in your position, whatever that position may be, and to be happy with your work. And I think for me that's wellness. When everything's going okay with my family, when my students are happy, I don't care about my administrators. When my students are happy, and when I got a roof over my head and something to eat, I'm in a good place.
Yeah. All right, folks. This has been one of the best episodes of the Exit Interview, a podcast for Black educators that I've hosted. Uh, don't go to Aurelius's job looking for discounts.
No.
Yeah, pay the full fee. We need the money in our museums these days. But thank you so much for coming on. If you are someone listening to this podcast and you are a Black educator, former Black educator in traditional space who'd like to share your exit interview story, please reach out at bewell@lineseducationalconsulting.com or uh, our podcast website, exitinterviewpodcast.com. Aurelius, thank you so much for coming on.